Thomas Sieckowski, January 9th, 2003. The bars have just closed in Lake County, Illinois, and the night is dark and freezing. Meet Thomas Sieckowski. He's 26 years old, and he's been out drinking with his friend, 27-year-old Michael Winscom. They're both pretty intoxicated, and now they need to get home. Instead of, calling a cab, they decide to race their snowmobiles across the partially frozen Pistakee Lake. You can already see where this is going. These aren't just casual rides. Thomas and Michael are going full throttle, hitting speeds over 100 miles per hour. That's 160 kilometers per hour, on a lake that isn't even fully frozen. The adrenaline is pumping, the engines are screaming, and common sense has clearly left the building. Suddenly, the ice beneath Thomas's snowmobile cracks. The entire machine plunges through the surface into the near-freezing water below, taking him with it. The shock of the cold is immediate. Thomas is struggling, fighting to get out. He manages to grab the edge of the ice and starts pulling himself up. He's halfway out, soaked and freezing, but he's alive. Meanwhile, Michael is still rocketing ahead at over 100 miles per hour. He looks back and sees nothing. Thomas is just gone. Panic sets in. Michael whips his snowmobile around, still at full speed, to go find his friend. He comes around a corner on the ice, and there's Thomas, half on the ice, half in the water, right in his path. At that speed, there is absolutely no time to stop. No time to even react. Impact. Okay, let's talk physics for a second. A 500-pound snowmobile hitting a person at 100 miles per hour generates a catastrophic amount of force. The front ski and cowling of Michael's sled, made of sharp, hard metal, acted like a guillotine. It struck Thomas directly in the neck. The force was so immense it sliced through skin, muscle, and the cervical vertebrae. His spinal cord, his trachea, his carotid arteries, all severed in an instant. Thomas was decapitated. His head was completely separated from his body. Death was instantaneous. When police arrived, they found a gruesome scene. Thomas's body on the ice, his head lying nearby, and Michael Winscom standing in shock, having just killed his best friend. Michael was eventually charged with reckless homicide. The prosecution argued he was drunk, driving recklessly on unsafe ice, and his actions directly led to his friend's death. The defense claimed it was a tragic accident. The verdict? Michael was found guilty and sentenced to just 6 months in jail. 6 months. For decapitating your friend. Just, wow. John Herington. Some people put up a no trespassing sign. Others build a fence. And some people stretch a steel cable across an entrance and turn it into an accidental guillotine. On the night of February 4th, 2011, John Herington was doing what he loved. The 46-year-old from Iowa was out on a Friday night ride with a friend, cruising on their snowmobiles through the dark, snow-covered fields. As they were riding, they approached the entrance to a piece of private property. The owner had stretched a heavy-duty steel cable across the lane to keep vehicles out. This is, surprisingly common in rural areas. The cable was taut, anchored to posts on either side, and hanging right about at neck level. The owner had even marked it with a large orange barrel. But in the pitch black of a winter night, even with headlights, a thin cable is nearly invisible until it's too late. John was traveling somewhere between 30 and 50 miles per hour. He never saw it. When you hit a taut steel cable at that speed, the cable doesn't break. It doesn't even move. You do. The entire force of the impact is concentrated on that one thin, unyielding line. It becomes a blade. The cable caught John right at neck level. It sliced deep into his throat, severing his trachea, his carotid arteries, and likely fracturing his cervical spine. The impact would have thrown him backward off his snowmobile as the machine kept going from under him. His death wasn't instantaneous like Thomas's, but it was brutally fast. Within 10 to 60 seconds, from a combination of massive blood loss and being unable to breathe, John was gone. His friend could only watch in horror and call for help that would arrive too late. In the end, no charges were filed. The property owner had legally placed the cable on their own land and had, even tried to mark it. John's death was ruled a tragic and horrifyingly painful accident. Sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones you can't even see coming. The Gondola Incident. Alcohol and heights. A combination that has produced some of the most predictably tragic stories imaginable. But this one, This one has a particularly nasty twist. In 2023, at a ski resort, a 29-year-old man was having a great time. Maybe, too great. He was drunk and decided to take a gondola up the mountain. These are the enclosed cable cars, suspended high above the slopes. In this case, the gondola was traveling 130 feet. That's about the height of a 13-story building above the ground. Inside the car, the man was behaving erratically. For reasons known only to him and his, intoxicated brain, he managed to break or fall through the gondola's plexiglass window. Suddenly, he was no longer inside the car. He was outside, in the open air, with nothing beneath him but a 130-foot drop. He had exactly 2.86 seconds to contemplate his mistake. 2.86 seconds of pure, stomach-lurching terror as the ground rushed up to meet him at over 60 miles per hour. But he didn't just hit the ground. Oh no, that would be too simple. He landed directly on top of a piste marker, one of those rigid metal or fiberglass poles used to mark the ski runs. The impact at over 60 miles per hour drove the pole deep into his body, most likely through his torso. The pole may have exited through the other side. I mean, it's one of the most horrific ways to die imaginable. It would have punctured organs, intestines, liver, lungs, maybe even his heart. A fall that was already unsurvivable, compounded by a brutal impalement. Death was likely instant, or it would have come within seconds from the combination of catastrophic trauma from the fall and massive internal bleeding from the impalement. Authorities investigated and, unsurprisingly, ruled it an accident. No charges were filed. It was a fatal and deeply painful consequence of a drunken decision. Zoe. This last story is different. There's no sarcasm here, no dark humor. It's just a tragedy. A soul-crushing, heartbreaking tragedy. On Sunday, January 14th, 2024, in Landgraaf, a small town in the Limburg province of the Netherlands, it was a cold winter afternoon. 9-year-old Zoe, described by her community as their dear little princess, was with her father near their family farm. There was a meadow nearby that had flooded and frozen over, creating a glistening sheet of ice. Her father had an idea for a bit of Sunday fun, a ride on the buggy across the frozen meadow. He would drive, and Zoe would ride on the passenger seat behind him. What could go wrong? Well, ice is deceptive. The ice on this meadow was not thick enough to support a heavy buggy plus 2 people. It was a flooded field, not a lake, meaning the water underneath could have been moving, creating thinner, weaker spots. They started off riding across the seemingly solid surface. It must have been fun, for a moment. A father and daughter enjoying a winter day. But then, at approximately 1:40 p.m., it happened. The ice gave way. The buggy broke through, and in the chaos, Zoe was thrown off. She plunged into the freezing water and immediately slipped beneath the ice. Her father managed to escape the water, but Zoe, she was gone. She had been swept under the ice, trapped in the freezing, murky water below. What happened next is the stuff of nightmares. Her father was on the surface, alive, but his daughter was under the ice and he couldn't get to her. He couldn't save her. He could only watch, helpless, as his little girl was drowning just feet away. When you break through ice, the hole can be small and the current can push you away from it. Underneath, the ice all looks the same. It's nearly impossible to find the hole you fell through. Zoe was trapped in the freezing, dark water, unable to find the surface, unable to breathe. Emergency services were called immediately. 2 dive teams arrived and entered the water searching for Zoe, but time was critical. After just 4 to 6 minutes without oxygen, brain damage becomes severe. The firefighters finally pulled her from the water after at least 10 to 20 minutes. She had been underwater for far, far too long. She was airlifted to the hospital in critical condition, technically alive, but with severe brain damage and hypothermia. She never regained consciousness. Zoe died in the hospital the next day. The community was devastated. Memorials were set up, and people rallied around the family. But the father, who just wanted to have a fun day with his daughter, had to live with the unimaginable guilt and the horror of having watched his own child die. Police ruled it a tragic accident, and no charges were filed. It's a story with no one to blame, and a pain that will never go away.